Well, and welcome everybody to my how to mold a Gunpla part video episode 1. Now, I will be doing this in 2 parts because I want to show you guys exactly the process without any cuts or editing, so there is no confusion whatsoever. Now, before I begin, I will let you know that this is now my second attempt at doing this, and even after watching videos on YouTube about how to mold properly and just a lot of cool stuff like that, I sincerely did not get it, but with the help of one of my buddies, he really helped me out and all that kind of good jazz. I finally got it. So what I did was, or what you can see me doing here is, I totally grabbed some Lego blocks that I found. People were throwing them away, so I said, you know what, I knew that this was going to be a good way of molding because you can reuse the blocks as kind of a way to create walls for where your part / piece is going to go into. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm just grabbing some hot glue and I'm creating a seal all the way around, and even in between the cracks of the joints where the Legos meet, I'm also gonna do, as you can see me here, I'm also gonna just add extra hot glue and stuff like that, because you want to create a nice perfect seal where the actual silicone is not going to leak out of and all that good jazz, because that's something you definitely don't want. You don't want your silicone spilling out. You want it to stay within the constraints of what you make. So, the hot glue gun is just a regular glue gun. I'm going to leave links in the description where you can get the silicone and what type and all that kind of good stuff. It's just a 2-part silicone. It's not that expensive, but I do recommend that if you guys are getting into molding with silicone, and for a fact that you're going to be molding with silicone for a few projects, or maybe you're going to want it for the future, or whatever it may be, that you're going to use silicone in the future, I suggest, in my opinion, you should invest in just larger quantities all at once, because you're going to save a lot more money. For instance, I believe this was like 2 quarts. I paid like $30-40. I can't remember exactly because I'm terrible with that kind of stuff, but it was somewhere along the lines of $30-40 for like 2 quarts, versus you getting like a gallon of silicone with the catalyst for like $110. So just word to the wise, do it that way, and then you can get different colors of catalyst. You don't need that much catalyst for your silicone. And again, I'm not a pro, but I can tell you that the catalyst is always the smaller portion in the whole ratio deal. But this one that I'm using is a blue and pink, and basically it's silicone molds for beginners, for people who are just learning like me, and it's to encourage you to know that, once it turns purple, if it stays blue, then it has like a faster curing time. But if it's purple, like lavender, then it takes a little bit longer to cure, about 6 hours. So once you have your nice little square, nice and blocked off here, you're going to want to give the hot glue a little bit of time to dry, just a bit, not too much. You're going to give it just a tiny, like a little iota of time to dry. And then what you see me doing here is just a little dab of hot glue so the piece doesn't move. And this is actually from, Gundam RX 782, which was my first master grade that I ever built. And this is mine from like 2001 or from 2000. It was like the very first master grade I ever bought. I remember I was broke and I scrounged up all my money just to buy it. Anywho, and then what I did was, in the hole right there, you can see that I stuck a toothpick, and that's so later, once the mold is cured, I can use that as a way to pour in the resin. So you'll see the way that I'll cut the way that I'll cut the what do you call it, the mold itself. It'll give me room to pour in the resin, but also it'll give me room for like a little ventilation, and that toothpick is part of that. And that's what you're gonna see in part 2. You know, even if I'm not explaining it correctly, but it'll make a lot more sense once you see it in part 2. You'll see it'll definitely make a lot more sense to give it somewhere for the air to escape, and that way I'll keep all the details, because what I want is to keep the detail on the bottom of the piece as best as possible. Oh, you know what? Now that I think about it, no, the bottom will not. But at least the pieces that are important will be there, and with the resin, it'll really help. So, and you know what? I'll get nice and creative with the bottom of it. It'll be a nice little project. Anywho, what I do want to warn you is make sure that you mix your silicone and your catalyst thoroughly before you pour it. And, you know, this is just part B, and it's blue. And then they have a part A, which, you know, comes in a yellow can, but it's pink. You know, it's pink and stuff. And trust me, that first time around, which you can see the pieces on the right-hand side, I completely trashed it and messed it up. And that was a lot of resin. But it's okay, because I'm also going to, in a future video, I'm going to show you how to recycle your silicone molding coming up in the future. And that's going to be a really good video on how to recycle it, because once you make a mold, unless you intend on reproducing copies of it, it's just going to be laying around your workshop, and you kind of don't want it to go to waste. And we'll talk about that, you know, in a future video. Leave a comment down below if in case you really do want to see the video, and I'll be more than glad to make it as exponentially as possible. But you have to go through a different process to kind of recycle the silicone, the rubber silicone. But you could definitely recycle it, and it's reusable, and it's going to save you a ton of money, a ton of time, and you won't be creating as much unbiodegradable, you know, material. But that being said, you know, mix your, you know, your two parts, your A and B, and once they're nice and mixed, and I mean thoroughly mix it, don't leave out anything, you know, go ahead and try to pour away as far away as you possibly can, so you get the less air bubbles in this thing, the better. So just make sure that you get a nice distance on the pour and stuff, and it'll be a very nice, slow, methodical process. And as you can see, this at the end of it took me right around 9 minutes, almost 10 maybe, pouring it completely out. But once it's dry, you're gonna have a part that you could definitely use. And a big piece of advice: do not try to do multiple pieces or multiple parts until you have the experience to back it up. Don't do what I did, because I tried to mold about, I don't know, 12 pieces at the same time, and I just ended up losing a bunch, and I mean a bunch of silicone, when that was not necessary at all. It was not necessary to lose all that silicone. It was not necessary to just waste all that material. If you're just getting the experience now, I suggest you start with one piece, you know, one part, and just mix little bits at a time until you get the experience underneath your belt of, you know, molding, and then, you know, pouring in the resin in the next one, and boom, and it'll be pretty easy. But that's pretty much it for this part of this video. So stay tuned for part 2. Please go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss it. And hit the like button, because it really does help me out and lets other people see this video. If you have any comments, concerns, or questions, please leave a comment down below. And I will leave a link to where you can purchase the silicone and all the good stuff that I used today. So as always, take care. Happy molding. Happy creating. Peace out, you guys.